World War II Mysteries, Japan's Wonder Machines, and Why They Didn't Save the Empire. Today we'll dive into one of the most intriguing chapters of World War II. We'll travel to the Empire of the Rising Sun to uncover the secrets of Japan's Wonder Machines, the secret technologies and ambitious projects that were supposed to turn the tide of the war, but never did. Why? Let's get to the bottom of it. The race for technology in the shadow of the Pacific Ocean. After defeating Russia in 1905, Japan emerged as a world power, embarking on an aggressive expansion across Asia. In the 1930s, having formed an alliance with Nazi Germany, Japan went headlong into an arms race, actively developing both conventional and unusual weapons, sometimes even banned by the Geneva Convention. Japanese engineers believed that it was unconventional approaches that would ensure their superiority. Behind these ambitions, however, was a harsh reality. Japan was extremely resource-constrained. Compared to the United States, its gross national product was 11.8 times lower, steel production was 12.1 times lower, and oil production was an astounding 776.8 times lower. Imagine an imperial laboratory where, behind steel doors, scientists lean over blueprints of giant submarines, schematics of death rays, and capsules with biological agents. Outside the window, a dark sea hides future tests of a weapon that was destined to remain only a dream. It was a desperate attempt to compensate for a fundamental lack of resources. Engineering ambitions, from the death ray to underwater monsters, 1930 to 1942. Japanese engineers of the time were true dreamers, but their dreams were centered on war. They even drew inspiration from Nikola Tesla's ideas, striving to create unique solutions for warfare at sea and in the air. One of the most exotic projects was the Ku-go death ray. In the 1930s, physicist Yoji Ito, who had studied magnetrons in Germany, led the development of microwave weapons. In 1940, the government allocated 2 billion yen for the project, and by 1944, a 30-kilowatt combat prototype was built. On tests, it was able to fry a rabbit at a distance of 30 meters in 10 minutes. However, the project was never completed, and the prototype mysteriously disappeared after the war. There were rumors that the Japanese planned to use it to destroy aircraft at a distance, but the technology was too primitive. Much more impressive was the I-400 type of submarine aircraft carrier project. After Pearl Harbor, Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto ordered the creation of a submarine aircraft carrier to strike the west coast of the United States. The requirements were unprecedented: a range of 40,000 miles and the ability to carry multiple aircraft. The lead ship, the I-400, was laid down in 1943. These submarines were colossal: 6,560 tons of submarine displacement, 122 meters long, capable of traveling 69,500 kilometers in 90 days. Each carried 3 Aichi M6A Seiran bombers, launched by a 36-meter catapult in just 40 to 45 minutes. There were plans to build 18 of these giants, but only 3 were completed. They were never used in combat, and after the surrender of Japan, the U.S. sank them so that they would not go to the USSR. These submarines remained the largest in the world until the advent of nuclear submarines in the 1960s, truly demonstrating the genius of engineering.
Attack on Pearl Harbor, the first baptism of firearms, December 7, 1941. On December 7, 1941, the world shuddered at the attack on Pearl Harbor. This operation involved Japanese Type A ultra-small submarines, another wonder weapon designed to strike stealthily. 5 mini-submarines were delivered by large carrier subs. However, Japanese hopes were not realized. A shot by the destroyer USS Ward at one of these subs was the first shots of the war in the Pacific. All 5 mini-submarines were sunk without making any progress. Their crews were killed, with one submariner taken prisoner. It was not until 2002 that the submarine of Junior Lieutenant Hiroro Akira was discovered, with a shell hole in the USS Ward. The history of these submarines, whose development began as early as 1932, has shown that even the most daring technological solutions are powerless without proper coordination and tactical training.
Biological Weapons, Unit 731 and its Horrifying Experiments, 1932 to 1945. But not all miracle machines were made of steel and electronics. The darkest and most shameful page of Japanese military science was Unit 731. It was a special unit engaged in research of biological weapons with monstrous experiments on living people, prisoners of war, and civilians. The unit operated near Harbin in Manchuria. Over 3,000 people were killed each year as a result of the experiments. The huge complex included laboratories, workshops for mass production of bacteria, an airfield, a special prison, and a crematorium. People were chopped off limbs, subjected to frostbite, burns, placed in barrow chambers. Even children and pregnant women were subjected to experiments. Vivisection was carried out, removal of vital organs from living people. The Japanese experimented with plague, anthrax, smallpox, cholera, having developed a strain of plague bacillus 60 times stronger than the usual one. The first attempts to test biological weapons were during the fighting on Khalkhin Gol. Then ceramic bombs with plague fleas were developed. After the war, many of the materials of Unit 731 were classified. There were rumors that some war criminals escaped trial by handing over their data to the Americans in exchange for immunity. This is one of the darkest chapters in the history of science and warfare.
Kaiten, Man Torpedoes of Death, 1943 to 1945. After the catastrophic defeat at Midway Atoll in 1942, as Japan began to lose the war at sea, another desperate idea was born. Human-controlled torpedoes called Kaiten, Changing Destiny. Lieutenants Sakeo Nishina and Hiroshi Kuroki proposed the project in 1943. Legend has it that they wrote a letter to the minister in blood to attract attention. Kaiten Type 1 was a 14.75-meter diameter torpedo with a 1,550-kilogram explosive charge in the nose. The small pilot's cabin contained the helm, instruments, and periscope. The torpedoes had 3 fuses: contact, electric, and self-destruct. They were attached to the submarines from the outside. One submarine could carry up to 4 Kaiten. The pilot got inside through a special airlock. The pilots had almost no chance of survival. It was a one-way weapon. The name Kaiten came from the coat of arms of the Kusunoki dynasty, symbolizing loyalty, and reflected fanatical devotion and willingness to sacrifice for the empire.
Fugo air bomb balls across the Pacific, 1944 to 1945. In yet another attempt to strike at the American continent, Japan launched a unique and sometimes curious weapon, the Fugo balloon bombs. The idea had originated back in the 1930s, but was revived in 1942. From November 1944 to April 1945, Japan launched more than 9,300 of these balloons. About 300 bombs were found or observed in North America, from Alaska to Texas. A 10-meter diameter balloon filled with hydrogen carried a 15-kilogram fragmentation bomb and 4 5-kilogram incendiary munitions. The shell of the balloons was made of special washi paper, which was glued by school children. The flight lasted about 72 hours, using high-altitude jet streams. The most tragic incident occurred on March 5, 1945, when Pastor Archie Mitchell, his pregnant wife, and 5 Sunday school students stumbled upon one of these bombs in the woods near Bly, Oregon. There was an explosion that killed all 7. They were the only victims of enemy violence in the Americas during the war. The U.S. government withheld information about the balloons to avoid panic. There were rumors that the Fugos were originally supposed to carry biological weapons, but Emperor Hirohito stopped that plan. Fugo is traditionally considered the first intercontinental guided weapon in history, a precursor to missiles.
Japan's atomic program, a dream unfulfilled, 1942 to 1945. Many people think that during World War II, only Germany, the United States, and the USSR had atomic projects. But in fact, there was also a Japanese atomic program. Recently discovered documents at Kyoto University, dating back to 1944, have confirmed these attempts. There were 2 parallel programs: Research F, led by Professor Bunsaku Arakatsu for the Navy, and Research No. 2, led by physicist Yoshio Nishina for the Army. Both groups attempted to develop equipment for separating and enriching uranium-235. However, they were sorely lacking in resources. After the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the Japanese command demanded that the scientists create a bomb in 6 months. The response was discouraging. Because of the lack of uranium and the necessary equipment, it would take 6 years, not months. The Japanese atomic program, though unsuccessful, showed a desire for a technological miracle even under the most desperate conditions, but was doomed for lack of resources.
Lessons from history. When technology can't replace strategy. Japan's defeat in World War II was natural. The total superiority of the U.S. in resources, economy, and science made their victory only a matter of time. The war was lost, in fact, at the moment of the attack on Pearl Harbor, when Japan came into conflict with a power whose capabilities were incomparable. August 1945. Somewhere in the depths of the Pacific Ocean lie the remains of the giant I-400 submarine aircraft carriers that never managed to strike. At the bottom of the sea lie the wreckage of Kaiten and ultra-small submarines. And in the sky over Japan, the remnants of paper balloons, Fugo, which never reached American cities, are flying. These miracle machines were powerless against the cold logic of a war of attrition. Japan's miracle machines remain a unique page in history. They showed the limits of human ingenuity, but they also taught a crucial lesson. Technology without a sound strategy, an adequate resource base, and a realistic assessment of one's own capabilities cannot change the course of war. What do you think of Japan's miracle machines? Do you believe Japan had a chance? Share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, put a like, and click on the bell not to miss new videos. See you soon.